Welcome to 2Cents FC. I'm your host, Amobi Okugo, back again with my guy, L. Each week, we'll be discussing topics from around the soccer world and giving you our unfiltered thoughts and opinions. This week, we're joined by Journalist and Nashville SC reporter, Drake Hills. This week, we'll be discussing about Drake, his career. He's not the rapper. Don't get confused. Recapping MLS January window and some big Chicago NISA news. Drake, how you doing today?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good. Just got done with a 5K, so I'm feeling nice and fresh. Trying to make sure that pandemic can't pick up the pandemic 15. I mean, y'all know how it goes with when you was back in your playing days, you staying fit, but it's a little bit harder nowadays. So I'm feeling pretty good. How about y'all?
No, we're doing good, man. You're just trying to put us to shame right off the back. You saying you came off for 5K?
Nah, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not the one falling by the wayside when we get back to normal or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, man, I've been running. That's kind of like how I keep my life balanced. Obviously we'll talk a little bit later in the show, but Nashville SC's been pretty busy, not only in this first season but in this off season as well. So this is my way of balancing work. I can't just be sitting on my computer all day. So
no, respect. Before we get into it, I gotta ask. So obviously we had to make the distinction. You're not Drake. Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, you know what? It's crazy because I used to get roasted like hard before he came out. Like middle school, I guess until pretty much all of middle school, I used to get roasted like, man, Drake's a white name. What are you doing? Blah, 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 woo, 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 woo. And it wasn't until high school, and I actually went to a private school, so it's kind of like a culture shock. Where I'm coming from pretty much K through 8, where I'm going to school with majority, Black kids, majority Hispanic kids, a lot of Asian kids. And I go to this private Catholic school, and we like 20 out of like 400 students in our class. And that's when Thank Me Later came out. So yeah, I was like, yeah, you already know, I took all the jokes, right on stride. And so I actually used to get roasted a lot about that name, but yeah, man, my first name is Drake, not my middle name. So just making that distinction,
Respect. So something we asked every guest that comes on the show, obviously you're a Cali boy as well. When did you fall in love with soccer?
Well, soccer was the first sport I ever played. So this was, 3-4 years old when I was living in Augusta still. I didn't move to San Diego till I was in the first grade. So really my first experience with sports, as far as me playing them, was soccer. From the Y to the local rec league to competitive. So that was the first sport I ever played. First sport I ever really thought that it was mine. I'm really a first generation soccer player in the family. I come from basketball players and football players on each side respectively. So soccer was like the first thing that was mine in my family. So I think that was really something that I just, from the jump, was like, that's my game.
Yeah, so talk about that because, obviously, being African-American, soccer is not the main sport. So what gravitated you towards, obviously it was yours, right. You can claim it, but what excited you about playing the sport of soccer?
I think it was the pace. I think it was the way the game, how you can feel yourself in the game and be so focused in it when nothing else matters, life or school or family or whatever else is going on. It just felt like it was my own world and I was the only one living in it. I think I caught a lot of ease with that. I got a lot of grace with that, and it felt like there was a passion that was feeding me when I stepped on the field. So I think that was something that drove me from 6 years old when I really started playing, week in and week out. And by the time I got to middle school, it felt like that allowed me to move along, not just on the field, but even off the field, to help me learn how to deal with folks of other races, other guys of other cultures and even other personalities. I think sport, especially in soccer, where you feel so much it reaches so far as the type of people you can run into, the type of cultures that's not just based on American culture, right? So it brings you along socially and it brings you along mentally, I think, in ways that perhaps maybe other sports don't have the bandwidth to do so.
No, I respect that. So growing up, did you play for like any club teams, or you just like, how did it all work out?
Yeah, actually, it's a funny story, sad story, kind of, because that's really how my career ended. But started playing with a club called Peak Premier, which no longer exists in the San Diego area. I was kind of playing for like their B team, and at the time, that's when I also started playing. I really started hooping as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I started hooping at a high level, and man, my grades was looking real rough. And so I actually started moving into that competitive level around middle school, around
Okay.
some like U12s. And my mom sat me down and was like, listen, first and foremost, it costs a lot of money. Like you're pushing, 1,200, 1,300 just to be on the team, in terms of, club fees and travel money and gear and all of that. And then I had just jumped onto the AAU circuit, and they was only asking for $75 for a tournament fee every now and then. So, I mean, you compare $75 to $1,300.
Yeah.
I mean, it don't really matter what sport you play.
Yeah.
that choice is easy. And then on top of that, my parents was like, hey, the reason why we're making you choose is because, really you got two classes that you borderline failing or are failing. So, I would train 3 days. When we weren't playing tournaments, I would train 4 days, but on tournament weekends, we would train 3 days a week. And then on top of that, I had basketball practice on the other days. So, like, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I had basketball practice, but Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I trained with my soccer team. So, you're really looking at like 6 days out of the week where I didn't really have much time to do homework, didn't really have time to do anything else but to be out on the field or be in the gym. So, yeah, your boy was kind of struggling a little bit. And I think financially, I think a lot of us in our community, right, where we don't really come from affluent backgrounds. And so, like our parents and my parents, aren't excluded from that. They made me choose because they couldn't afford doing both.
No, you bring up a great point. A lot of people, there's the argument on, should your child play multi sports growing up? But there's cost factors into that, and then there's the factor of balancing schoolwork and social and all these different things for a child. So obviously, if you can do it, then do it. But if you can't, a child's gonna have to be faced with some tough decisions at a young age.
Exactly.
So you chose basketball, obviously, $75 per year or on an occasion versus, $1,400, $1,500. How did you get back into soccer?
So I got back into soccer really starting from, I want to say high school, when I think it was around the time where you started seeing Fox Soccer and you started seeing other companies, broadcast companies begin to really expand their coverage of the European game. And I think around that time, I really started getting back into the Champions League. So that's how I started supporting Bayern Munich, because this was around the time when, Jan Pikus had came back and took over the club. It was the year before they won the treble. So I just remember I was like, dang, who is this team? It was like, I think it was a replay. I was watching on like a Saturday morning, but it was a midweek Champions League game. I was like, dang, this team's out here decked out with the all black. They had the all black jerseys, and it was like Schweinsteiger, you had Dante, you had Van Boyten, you had you had a young
Philip
David
Lahm.
Alaba. Philip Lahm, young David Alaba, who really is my personal favorite. You had Mario Gomez, you had Mula, obviously, Toni Kroos. So like that from the jump, like as soon as I got back into soccer was around the same time that I really took love for Bayern Munich. So that's what really drove me. And then once I got towards the end of high school and was thinking about college, I was like, my basketball career is done. I had jumped off the AAU circuit, but I was like, I don't really want to do something that is excluding sports, but I also want to do something that I think I can offer others. And I had a couple of English teachers that said, hey, like your creative writing is good. You just need to work on your mechanics and work on some other things that, could make you better. So I was like, let me just combine it, and obviously, writing about basketball or writing about baseball, those are saturated markets. And I thought, look, my favorite sport is soccer. I think I have a niche here. So I've just been sticking with that probably it's been about 7 years now. So I think it's certainly something that is my passion. When you talk about something or my reason why that I do what I do, it's really focusing on taking the time or when opportunities do come to tell the Black soccer story when I can and when that opportunity does present itself, because that's what drives me as a journalist, is to talk about the players, the coaches, the fans, the communities, and really the culture that I think gets used and doesn't get enough credit. We don't get a lot of citations in our contributions as far as MLS, NWSL, USL, really doesn't matter, even US national team, or just globally, like the Black soccer culture throughout our diaspora. We contribute so much, but I think we don't get cited for it. So I love telling those stories, and that's what drives me.
Oh, that's amazing. So what was your first story? Like, obviously, I assume you went to school, you studied journalism.
Yeah.
What was your first story when it came to soccer, when you had that itch where I'm going to carve out my niche, I'm going to focus on soccer content, and I'm going to write about soccer stories?
Absolutely. I would say, tying it back to what I was recently speaking about as far as, culture and how we contribute to the game. My first was getting a chance. I was covering the University of Oregon. I went to the University of Oregon for undergrad. Shout out, Go Ducks. And
Were you, so you were there when Coach Kelly was there?
Obviously, they don't have a. What's that?
You were there when Coach Chip Kelly was there? Like during the good years?
No, I came after Kelly. I was in the Helfrich era.
Okay.
So Kelly had left while I was still in high school, and then Helfrich had took over like my freshman year.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was, but it was really Chip Kelly's team, right? So he recruited. I mean, Helfrich was still on the staff, but like Chip Kelly was the one who recruited Marcus Mariota, who recruited D'Anthony Thomas. Especially coming from SoCal, like D'Anthony Thomas is one of them dudes, Crenshaw cat. So, but yeah, so I came in, and the first story I was able to tell was really around the time that the Colin Kaepernick debate was happening, and it was around the time where his actions and his decision to kneel started taking really began to motivate and influence a lot of other athletic programs, whether it be football, soccer, basketball, all across the country, not only just professionally, but collegiately. And so at that time, that was when Oregon, UCLA, which is obviously a top tier program in the country, USC, a lot of Washington players were deciding to kneel. So that was around the time where I was saying, hey, like why is this Oregon soccer team kneeling? And I got a chance to tell that story for a local publication on campus. And that was really start like, hey, like obviously I was covering and writing about this team just as a regular beat writer, but that was all fine and dandy. But really what drove me was getting a chance to sit down with a lot of these players and just ask them, what they thought about the Colin Kaepernick ordeal, what they thought about his decision, what they thought about what kneeling does for them in their space as a Pac-12 soccer program, and obviously them as young women, right? I mean, what does that mean for them? What message do they want to convey with that action? And so that was really the start. But obviously as an MLS reporter, I mean, we all know with the emergence of the Black Players for Change and even the subsequent bursts of obviously the Black Players Coalition, USL, NWSL. So that was time where I got a chance to sit down with Kai Kamara, and I got a chance to sit down with CJ Sapong, and that was really the start of me covering the Black Players for Change and making sure that, I wanted to be the leader of that. Like I wanted to make sure that saying, hey, like there needs to be someone who understands where they're coming from when they start talking about the issues that they've gone through as players. That it did not start as an MLS player. It started when they were young, when they were teens, and they went through and they made it to the top level of American soccer. But a lot of the experiences that they have are still the same. And so that was important for me to tell that story.
No, I respect that. So obviously, you worked your way up. You're now the beat writer for a Nashville soccer club. we don't see a lot of Black journalists. So talk about that experience. That group. I can imagine like you go into the press room and it's you and a few others, if that. So talk about that experience.
It's just me. It's just me, man. And on top of that, like my first season as a Nashville SC reporter or a reporter covering Nashville SC was the pandemic season. So it's not like I wasn't traveling, I wasn't going to Seattle. Shout out Jada. Jada Evans is out there covering the not just Seattle Sounders, but she's also covering Reign as well, OL Reign. So she's doing her thing out there. Shout out Kobe Price down there in South Florida, covering Inter Miami. Young dude like me, so we both coming into the game, as young Black men. Damian Calhoun in LA, doing his thing, covering LA Galaxy, and then you got JJ Adams out there in Vancouver. So now we all have our interesting experiences, and I'm sure, Jada's been in the game for a while, JJ's been in the game for a while, Damian's been in the game for a while. But we all have our, interesting experiences coming into the press boxes where you're like, yeah, there's a huge Latin contingent, right? And there's obviously the majority is a bunch of white dudes. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that's the reality of it. And you coming into the press box and you have to make sure you're doing your job, but it's like the sauce, the natural personality that comes out. I'm like, if I say a joke, like who's gonna laugh? Like if I say, especially when I'm trying to talk with folks from the club, or maybe I'm on a virtual press call and you can't really have that interaction with a player on Zoom, that obviously, like if I'm speaking with them face to face, we can understand, so that was the struggle of the 2020, no doubt. And I was just glad just to make sure to power through, because like I said, there's only 5 of us, so we got to make sure that we're not slipping and we're not covering teams inadequately, because obviously that doesn't just show up on my record personally, but that shows up on our record, if you know what I'm saying.
You hit the nail on the head about that. It's not just for yourself, it's for the people that are coming after you, the people that came before you too. So I want to take a moment to shout out to my guy Karith Gabriel, someone that's done it in the Philly scene for a while. He broke a lot of stories during the Philly days, so he's the OG. But for anyone coming up, someone that's interested in soccer, talking about soccer, young African American guy or gal, what advice would you have for them?
I think you need to find something that ties you to the game and not worrying about what other folks want to place upon you. Like, I think the problem with American soccer is like there's this message that's given to you, like you have to like the numbers and the analytics, and you have to like the corny jokes, and you have to like a lot of the, in my opinion, like a lot of the, I guess you could say, pillars of like MLS culture. Like, to me, a lot of this stuff is corny. Like when I go on Twitter, man, I'm really just like looking what you guys say. I'm looking at how unserious my Nigerian scams, what he says is funny to me. Unfortunately, like to me, he's like one in a million, because like that doesn't happen anywhere else in MLS media.
Correct.
And so, but that's what I would like to send, the message that I would like to send to young Black men and young Black women who want to get into the game is, find something that you are tied to, like something about the game that you are tied to that's for you. And that's going to be what helps you stick, not just for now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and helps you keep getting employment, helps you keep getting appearances, and helps you keep getting opportunities to grow your brand. Because if you're trying to accommodate, and if you're trying to fit in with everybody else, you're going to fail straight up. Like, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, because your whole life is contradictory to what MLS media culture and MLS culture in general is. And I think the positive, though, out of that, and I would say a caveat in that, is that I think MLS culture is diversifying. And I think we saw this season, and maybe a couple of seasons prior, not just Black players, but just players that are coming from different backgrounds expressing themselves. And it's no longer just everyone's the same, everyone looks the same, does the same thing, says the same thing. I think we're starting to see a lot more character, a lot more swagger. And I think I appreciate that. And I'm sure fans appreciate that as well.
No, respect.
Real quick, who's the swaggiest player to you right now?
Swaggiest player?
Yeah, in MLS, in your opinion.
Man. To me, I think recently is BWP, is Bradley White Phillips. So shout out to Bradley.
That's a good shout.
Yeah, I want to say I'm going like team to team. I don't know. I think Quincy showed up. Americo, he showed up in a different type of, like a swagger on the field. So I like when he was with DC. I think Hani Mukhtar. I think to keep it local, Nashville SC's Hani Mukhtar. He's not the most loud guy, but I think he's starting to come into his shoes. You put me on the spot. I'm going to have to think about that one. I'm going to have to think about that one. What would you say? What would you say? Who are the swaggiest players in MLS right now?
I don't want to sound biased. I'm going to say Joseph Martinez.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. That's kind of a tough one too. Like I could reel off all the European guys, but like thinking about MLS, like that's a tough one. And like that's part of the problem, really. Like there's nobody who's really standing out and like being the face of the league.
Right.
What you think? About who you got?
It's tough because it's not like you have like how you have like Memphis Depay and Karim Benzema doing like their like video shoots. We don't really see that.
Hey, Benz has the best hype videos in Europe. Period.
Like I would love to see a couple MLS players do that. So in terms of like swaggiest players, you got to go with my guy Sebastian Legit. Kellen Acosta. If you check out his page, he's doing some cool things. The young boys, Derek Etienne, Isaac King. Those young boys, they got a little swag to them.
Yeah, I rock with Etienne a lot actually. I got a chance to see him play a little bit. Obviously, the second time. Let's see, because they played Nashville twice. I think it was the second time he played, and yeah, he did his thing. But I watched him obviously throughout the season. I think when he was with the Red Bulls was like my first introduction to him. I thought he was pretty solid.
Outside of that, it's pretty bland. People just.
That's what I'm saying. Like I think MLS we're really seeing a growth spurt right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe 4 or 5 years ago where. Maybe not so much, but I think, and I don't even think it's the players. I really think it's just the system.
Yeah, you're right. And I got to put Kai up there too, because like he might not be swaggy in that sense, but he'll go against the grain. Like he's doing his own stuff, celebration, stuff like that. Oh, and then I got to get my guy Kyrie Shelton in there. So if you check out his page, he's doing some cool things from
I salute to him because obviously, man, the dude is quick. Dude's got the pace, but obviously he knows how to finish. I think he's a prolific scorer, but I can't give him too much credit because he's a Beaver.
True.
He's a Beaver, so I gotta watch out.
I forgot. So you mentioned the 5 like journalists, like the contingent. I'm gonna call you guys like the Avengers almost. Like you named them by name. Talk about being part of the national. Let me get the naming right. The National Association of Black Journalists. Like, how has that helped you in your career?
It's given me the confidence when I came in. So I went to Oregon, right, as I said earlier, but also I got my master's at Northwestern. So Medill, obviously, you start talking about guys who come out of Medill that have come into MLS media. You start talking about Paul Tenorio, Sam Stage School. Although he didn't go to Medill, but he went to Northwestern. Jeff Carlisle at ESPN. So Northwestern has that pedigree, but around that same time is when I actually also started getting involved with Andy BJ. And so I think my first class at Northwestern, I was like, listen, I'm here to establish 3 C's: confidence, character, and connections.
Oh, I like that. Hold up, I gotta write that down.
So that was a lot. Again, as I said, I think when I was going into NABJ, I started going to the national conferences. You got, dudes like David Aldridge and, Mark Spears, guys off Mike Wilbon, like just black men and women that you see all the time. Taylor Rooks, just greatness everywhere, like in the entire ballroom, right? And so you've seen black excellence for 3 straight days, but at the same time, you see these tiers of folks who are coming into the business, and you just work with each other and you build each other up. And it's nice for a change to be around folks who have experienced the same thing that you have, who've gone into rooms where you're the only one, or who have ideas that don't fit the mold. And so my confidence was something that was edified around that time. So when we talk about confidence, character, and connections, my confidence was something I think that grew a lot in that time. And I think my character as well, and I'm still trying to work on that and trying to brand myself as to who I want to be as not just a reporter, but a storyteller. Because like for me, being a reporter is nice and all. I've done it. I've reached it. I've, become, as I said, one of only 5. But I think I just want this to be the base. I don't want this to be something that I do for a long time. I see myself being able to be a storyteller and not just write about it. I think and I believe, my skills, fare beyond newspapers and just writing, because I can go on camera. I believe I can be able to get on a podcast mic or not just do podcasts, but also tell stories, something you might hear on NPR or something like that. So I think that's where my confidence and my character is going. And then, of course, when you go into a ballroom with some of the best Black journalists, if not all of the best Black journalists in the country, your connections will just they'll explode. So that's what really the NABJ has done for me. I'm continuing to be a member, but also participate in the conferences and just staying connected with guys, because we're all over the place.
Perfect. So if there's you talk about being a storyteller, if there's one story that you would want to tell, from the Black soccer perspective, what would it be?
Oof. I have a couple ideas, but I would love to be able to profile, obviously, one of the veterans. Like when I think of veterans, like nowadays, I'm thinking like Jaleel Alibaba for Nashville. I'm thinking, Kai Kamara, obviously. Been in the game since I think 06. He came in 06 with Columbus. Even CJ Sapong, Bradley Wright Phillips, although obviously he came in as a guy from overseas, but being able to tell the story on like what is life like this when it's aside from soccer, but like how are you as a Black man? Do you feel a part of, and do you feel at the forefront, and when it comes to like advancing our culture as Black people, like what's it like being a Black soccer player off the pitch, whether it be just in your community, whether it be with other Black athletes, other Black professionals in your particular space. What was it like being just a Black male growing up in, for many, a predominantly non-Black space? Yeah. And then on top of that, playing a sport that was predominantly non-Black. Like, what was it like culturally, socially, mentally? So being able to write a story and formulate it off of a certain theme and tell that story, I think for me, that would be something I would love to tell. But also, I think style is something that we see. We were talking about earlier as far as like the swaggiest players in the league. Everybody probably wants to write something on Pogba. Everybody wants to write something on Depay. Everybody wants to write something on Neymar or guys like that. But who's that guy here? And I think we were all trying to figure out who that was as far as Black players are concerned. But I think that kind of a story would advance what I want to see in MLS, which is the cultural freedom and the accreditation of like, hey, Black culture is going to be what advances us to the next level as a American soccer family. That's personally what I believe is that
you're right.
Yeah, like we've seen, in my humble opinion, we've seen what Latin culture's buy-in to the MLS and to really American soccer has done for the league. I think the league knows that. I think the fans know that. I think individual clubs know that. When you have the buy-in of the local Latinx community, you take another level up. But so what's going to happen when Black culture comes in? Ask Atlanta United.
So let's talk about that, because you work with Nashville FC. How has the Black community embraced Nashville, and how has Nashville SC made efforts to get into the Black community from your perspective?
To answer your first question, I think the Black community is still they're still novice as far as American soccer, what American soccer is. That a lot of them know about national teams and Ronaldo and Ronaldinho and like other legendary players. Henry, they might know Henry, they might know Real Madrid, they might know Manchester United, but they still don't know MLS, and they still don't know players in MLS. And I think that introductory phase is still taking place right now. So I think the knowledge of the game and the culture and the actual message that MLS gives off is still something that they're still trying to receive.
Yeah.
And then your second question, I mean, to be frank and to be honest, and I don't mean to be overly critical here, but I just don't think that Nashville SC and really any majority MLS clubs are exclusively and wholeheartedly and effectively attacking or targeting Black communities in their particular markets.
No, you bring up a great point. I don't think I've seen it a lot as well. Shout out to Philadelphia, shout out to Warren. When he was there, he did a after school program, Design FC. Saad, from Cincinnati, he's doing public school financial literacy program. But I didn't hear anything about Cincinnati backing that effort. So hopefully we can see more as people continue to bring awareness.
Yeah, and I know with guys like Jeremy Babise and as you mentioned, guys like Warren, Ray Gaddis, they're doing big things. They've been doing big things in Philly and in Chester, PA, and in the surrounding areas. But I think there's just way too many markets where the Black communities are just sitting there, like Miami, like Nashville, DC United, NYCFC. What are y'all doing? New York, like New York Red Bulls. I mean, Houston Dynamo, H-Town. Like
it really, like, don't even get me started on Houston. You have like the biggest Nigerian population, and you just don't see anything from that standpoint. And it's not even
Columbus Crew.
Yeah.
Columbus Crew. You got a massive Ghanaian population in Columbus, massive. Yeah. Like, and I think obviously, especially with a club like that, when Greg Berhalter was there, we saw what happened when. And I actually got a chance to talk to him about this. I think it was 2 years ago now. It's been a while. I just told him, I was just asking him, like, what was the not necessarily need or desire, but what allowed guys like Harrison Afful, obviously David Accam came in with Chicago, but like Harrison Afful, you got Abubakar, you had Mensah, like Ghanaian players just going crazy coming into the league. And then obviously in Harrison Afful is still with Columbus. Jonathan Mensah was with Columbus. Jonathan Mensah was, arguably along with Walker Zimmerman, the best, if not one of top two center backs in the
I see what you did there. You give your Nashville players some love.
I got to make sure I got to make sure I'm, I am a Nashville SC reporter, so I got to recognize game. But I do think, Jonathan's the reason why they.
Yeah, those are,
in my opinion, he's the reason why they had the best goal against record in the league. So it's like, Jonathan is that dude. Why? But then Columbus has, like I said, one of the biggest Ghanaian populations. And I didn't even know that until, last year, a couple of years ago. But I'm sure if you are living in Columbus, you probably have known that years ago. So I think there's a lot to be said. And I remember I was talking to Grant Wall about this. And look, the whole coaching hire thing, man, there's a lot of clickbait going on about coaches like DC United, for example. Oh, they're considering Hendrickson, they're considering this black coach, that black coach, like Ezra, for example. Like, nah, y'all, that's clickbait. And all those Twitter posts, that's cap.
Yeah.
Straight up, it's cap, bro. Like I'm not trying to pick out DC. I'm not trying to pick out clubs because I know it was a collective trend.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was a trend. And we were out here tweeting like, oh, this club hasn't tweeted their statement out yet. Like, it was like, okay, we all have to say something.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we get in trouble. If we do, they're going to critique what we said. But so I get that there was a catch-22 in that regard. But at the same time, if you were really about that life, you wouldn't have to worry about what you would say, because from the bottom of your heart, I would be able to understand. Like, I would be able to understand, like, the fact that, okay, that's genuine. And I know that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're right, man. But shout out to DC though, because they did hire a black woman as the president of their club. But from the coaching standpoint, like you said, we knew they wasn't going to make that hire for, whether it's Henderson or anyone else. So, do better, MLS clubs, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah. So, with that being said, we talked about that. Let's talk about the HBCU community. Are you able to cover any HBCU soccer, like from a college standpoint?
I've been itching to get down to Fisk. Obviously, if you know about Black soccer culture in America, if you know about just soccer, U.S. men's national team history in America, you know who Desmond Armstrong is. You know who Jimmy Banks is. And I need to check in and see, what Fisk's season is looking like. Obviously, we know the college season overall has been split. Now, really, the ACC was the only conference that was really playing men's soccer last year. As far as D1 is concerned, at the highest level. But I do wonder what's going on with Fisk, and obviously Desmond Armstrong is the coach over there. So, I've been itching to get that story out. I unfortunately haven't been able to, but I think once we get closer into this season, I've got a year under my belt. I would love to take that time. And I also love to take the time to get into the community, because there are, Black coaches and administrators, directors of coaching at youth clubs, state soccer executives, like the executive of Tennessee State Soccer is Black. Hans Hobson. So, look up Hans Hobson has been in, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee for decades, whether as a director of coaching for what is now Tennessee SC, but used to be Brentwood Soccer Club before it merged with another club. So there are Black men and women who've contributed to the game here in Middle Tennessee. And so that's something I hope, now that I have a year under my belt. 2020 was madness. So I'm hoping that things will be a little more calm and I can actually spread my wings a little bit.
No, I love that. Someone like Coach Desmond Armstrong is someone that I, really respect. He was one of my first coaches when I, first stepped into the youth national teams. And, to hear his story and learn from him at that young of an age, it really set the table for the motivation. Having someone that I can see and grasp and talk to, it makes all the difference. So, I wish I had like Steph Curry money. I could probably do something like that from a sponsor a soccer team. But we know as 2Cents Sports and 2Cents FC continues to grow, best to believe L's already thinking how we can.
Yeah. I'm looking up to you guys, because I've had that dream. Like, as I said, coming up in San Diego, like Southeast San Diego is just like any, big city where you have a large area of, it's just the hood. And unfortunately, athletes get deprived, where you have some of the best athletes in their grade, in their class, end up going. And look, track is great. Basketball is great. Baseball is great. Football. But imagine the excellence that could come from giving 6, 7-year-old Black boys and girls who are just natural athletes the opportunity to play the game without asking their parents for money. Imagine the opportunities, not just on the field, but as coaches, scouts, physios, potentially, folks who want to be doctors or physicians, business. There's just so many different career paths. I think we would be able to give our fellow Black boys and girls, whether it be in the hood or not, through the game of soccer, that I think, quite frankly, I don't think other sports, as far as youth is concerned, I don't think they have the bandwidth to do.
Oh, you're right. El, what you got?
Man, ain't speaking nothing but truth there, man. That's something, as Amobi mentioned, that's like a big part of our mission. 2Cents Sports is not only to like elevate, Black voices in sports, but also to, expose underserved communities, expose these young Black kids to new things. You know what I'm saying? So like, we all think about football, basketball, but exposure to soccer, exposure to golf, tennis, some of these other like fringe sports that like the culture is there. It's just it doesn't have the light on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with that said, let's jump into Two Truths in the Cap.
We pull my list out, man.
Yeah. One of our new favorite games to play. Well, mine, because
Not my favorite.
I'm up. So the rules to this game is Drake is going to give us 3 facts about himself, and 2 of them will be true, 1 will be a lie, and Amobi and I have to guess what the lie is. So Drake, whenever you're ready.
All right. So here we go. Point number 1. I've been to Dubai. There's a story behind that. There's a soccer story behind that. Hold up. I just gave y'all the answer, didn't I?
Start over. You said you got a bunch of them.
I got a bunch of them. I'll just tell the story anyway. I'll tell the story anyway. So yeah, I was in Dubai. Let's see. That must have been 2017. This was June 2017. And I touched down, and it was the first day of Ramadan. Ooh. So Dubai was like, Dubai is kind of like a supersized Vegas. Like, it's on a 24-hour clock. They don't do that 12-hour mess. No. There's no such thing as 9 to 5s and rush hours. Like, it's always popping in normal, in non sacred times. So it was during Ramadan. It was first day of Ramadan. So I got there. It was hot. It was like, must have been 98. And I finally had the courage to step out. It was around 11 p.m. It was 98 degrees. So I took this tour, and I went out to Palm Island. And our first stop, we got off at this little, I guess it was in normal hours, it's kind of like a little stand-up a la carte market, right? But we got out because I can't remember. There's like this huge, kind of like it's a hotel, but it's a real popular hotel closer to Palm Island. So we got close to Palm Island, and the first stop, and they hit over the loudspeaker like, "You see this first villa over here? That's David Beckham's." And I was like, "Oh snap! That's David Beckham's holiday villa." This man, like Palm Island, like if you on Palm Island, like you got you top class, like, and that's just obviously like he don't live there full time, so like to think that somebody can just pull up there on like Christmas or something, that was next level. So that was pretty cool. All right, let me start over. I got the story done. All right, so point 1. I visited multiple nations on the motherland. Point 2, I didn't go to my first MLS match until 2014. And then point 3, I'll say my favorite club is a Premier League club.
Cap.
Point
favorite
3
club is the lie.
Bayern.
We got to do more rounds. I told you I was boo-boo at this game.
No, I'm taking my point. Woo.
Nah. We got that one. All right, we'll come back at the end. We'll come back at the end of the show and do another round.
All right. Sounds good, man. Because like I said, I've always wondered, how can I make something ambiguous enough for them to believe it, but descriptive enough so I can make sure that they don't get it right? Like, for some reason, my brain just don't work like that.
It's a great conversation starter.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's go.
Right. I'll come back to it then.
Let's go ahead and jump into these topics. So, first topic of the day, talk about MLS's big January window. So there's a ton of movement in January window for MLS players moving abroad on either loan or permanent deals. So I'll run down the list of people who dipped out during the January window. Mark McKenzie, center back for Philly, moved to Genk. Justin Che, defender for FC Dallas, moved to Bayern on loan with a purchase to option to purchase. Joe Scally, right back from NYCFC, went to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Brian Reynolds, right back from FC Dallas, went to AS Roma. Dallas is moving. Reggie Cannon moved last year. I don't know why that was in the article. Jordan Morris, attacker from Seattle Sounders, moved to Swansea on the loan with the option to buy. Paul Areola, wingback from DC United, went to Swansea on loan. Daryl DK, striker from Orlando City, went to Barnsley on loan with the option to buy. And Brian Rodriguez, winger from LAFC, went to UD Almeria on loan with option to buy. So a lot of loans with option to buy. Which players out of this group do you think have the potential to be breakout stars abroad?
I would say definitely Brian Reynolds. I think he's young enough to still jump onto another track, into the Roma track, and actually develop and take some big steps. And obviously Roma is Roma, so I'm not quite sure how minutes will play out. But I think he's someone who has a lot of potential. I don't think he's someone who's just going to stick as a right back. I think they might try to play with him a little bit, similar to what Bayern did with Alphonso Davies, right? I mean, Davies came out as a winger. He can play as outside mid. He can play as a winger. He can play as a fullback. We've seen, arguably, last Champions League season, he was one of the best fullbacks in the final, I want to say, really the knockout stage. And even for the Bundesliga, I think he was one of the best fullbacks. So I think Brian Reynolds is on that track. I will say, though, the way that Daryl DK kind of came onto the scene, that was out of all those moves, I think that one not necessarily took me by surprise, but I wasn't necessarily expecting that move specifically to Barnsley because it was the pandemic season, but I think he was one of the best rookies. And if MLS didn't switch up the award to a young player of the season type of award, I think he would have been rookie of the year, in my opinion, or certainly top two. I just think that he also has another high ceiling that he probably won't reach just yet, but he has a lot of room to improve and a lot of potential, a lot of upside. So, and then again, Barnsley, I think he might get a lot of, good minutes. So, but, in the meantime, while MLS is figuring their thing out, I think that, those two guys will probably blow up a little bit. Not to say that Areola or Jordan Morris won't pop off. I'm just saying, Brian Reynolds is a guy who I think going to a club like Roma, they've shown that they can put guys back on the track, Mo Salah. Dude was written off by really the majority of the top six in England. He goes over there, does his thing, and look where he is now. So I'm not saying that that's exactly what Brian is going to do, but Roma is proving that you can make something of yourself in that club. So,
what you think, Amobi?
Yeah, I would say right off the back, looking at the list, Mark McKenzie, he's already balling out at Genk, and they're like a feeder club too. So I expect him to make a big move, another big move, within the next 2 years. Justin Che, he's a young guy. He's probably going to play with the reserves. So Joe Scally, he's been out at Borussia for quite some time. He's still coming back. I think he came off injury. I think Brian Rodriguez is going to make some noise. Obviously, LAFC, he's done well there, but not to the extent of his full potential. So I think if I go off the list, Mackenzie, Brian Rodriguez are the two big time breakouts. DK is going to do well, but his option to buy is too high, so it's more just like to get that experience and kind of put him on the radar. And Jordan Morris, he's not going to stay at Swansea. He's too high of a caliber. I think it's just to see him get acclimated to that system, that league, and everything like that.
I think as far as the Swansea, with Ariel and Morris, but particularly Morris, I think going on what you were saying, I think that's more of an audition for the other clubs. Think about a lot of the clubs, and it was funny. Like Brentford fans had jumped on me mad crazy when I was talking early this week, because I'm realizing like literally every other championship club in the top 4 were really tapping into MLS other than Brentford.
Yeah.
Swansea was doing their thing. Barnsley doing their thing. So, I mean, like when I think of the other clubs, at the top of the championship, I think those are not clubs who are thinking championship. They're thinking Premier League. And I'm not trying to assume anything, but guys who, might be able to get into a championship side that's for sure going to make the playoff. And might get into the Premier League that way, or they might win out and be in the Premier League next year, or be on the radar of clubs in the Premier League next year, is what I'm saying. So as far as Morris goes, I definitely think it's an audition, and we'll see what happens over the next 3.5 months.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think he's too good of a player to even have it to do an audition, but like you said, there's because of the pandemic and everything going on, it'll be interesting. I want to see how he plays. Obviously the championship is a little bit more physical, but he has the body type to handle the physicality of the league. It's just that coming off a couple of injuries that he has, definitely interested to see how that goes.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of key players for some pretty solid teams have made moves.
Diego Rossi.
Yeah, he just got to move, right?
Yeah, he went to.
Did it happen? Was it confirmed?
I think he went to, or it's reported that he's going to Reading, right?
I don't think it got confirmed. There was like rumors that was going to happen. I'm not sure why he would go to Reading out of all the teams that could be after him, but I'm not sure if it was confirmed. But these moves, especially with the loan to option to buy, is very interesting. Obviously, with everything going on, MLS talk about possible lockout, so should be interesting.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of this stuff is preemptive to a degree, because you have key players. You got Jordan Morris, Daryl DK was a key player for Orlando last season. Brian Rodriguez, Mark McKenzie was about to come into his own, dipping out. And especially when it comes to Morris, DK, like a lot of those were like super sudden, you know what I'm saying? So like, is that a precursor to what's coming for the MLS season, with their labor disputes?
Yeah. I think so. Like I said, I think the DK move was probably the biggest. Again, I'm not going to say surprise, but I wasn't necessarily anticipating that move particularly.
What do you think, Amobi?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think some things are going to happen. Yeah. I think some things are going to happen, and this is a great way for some of the top caliber players from these specific teams to not only get seen, but to stay active if there's a lockout.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so moving on, let's jump over into NISA. This is like one of the few times we've covered like a NISA team, hoping to do that more in the coming years as they roll out their spring season. CJ Brown is hired to be the first technical director and head coach of NISA's Chicago club. So Chicago soccer legend CJ Brown, a black man, will lead Chicago's professional NISA team as the new club's first head coach and technical director. Brown, who was inducted into MLS Hall of Fame, MLS club Chicago Fire's Ring of Fire in 2012 and earned 15 caps with the national team, is tasked with assembling Chicago NISA's first professional squad and leading them into the club's inaugural season, which kicks off in August. Brown's fellow Ring of Fire member, Peter Wilt, noted that this is a great fit for Brown and Chicago NISA. He quotes, the club needed a knowledgeable, experienced coach with connections to Chicago who shares the club's values. CJ needed an opportunity to prove himself as a head coach and a team builder, and an opportunity to do so in his adopted hometown. So according to Wilt, I saw a tweet of his. I couldn't find it to quote it word for word, but he said they intentionally looked at people of color and women to be considered for hires because there's a lot of talent in those pools and they're not getting opportunities, and they want to deliberately actively seek opportunities for, coaches of color and women coaches. So what do you guys' thoughts on the hire? How do you guys feel about it?
I love it. I mean, CJ is a MLS legend, done a lot of great things during his time with Chicago Fire. But also he's been an assistant coach for like the longest. It's about time he got a chance to prove himself. Whether it's NISA, whether it's USL, whether it's UPSL, whether it's MLS, he deserves a shot. So I'm excited for him to do his thing and see what may happen.
Yeah, I think the pedigree, that what he's already shown, that like he's had excellence at every level and every capacity of the game. Like you already talked about his coaching career. We already know what he did as a player in a particular market that was really hot on, off the bat, right? When Fire came into the league, they were success automatic. And then when CJ came along, it was kind of like, he just went along with the success of the club. So I think in Chicago has been a club, just even from my recent time there, I used to, really focus on what they were doing on the far north side with a lot of the neighborhoods that were, really populous with a lot of Western African, Central African young players, and even on a lot of those players even coming from the South side as well, South Shore. I think NISA is a league that can really tap into that market as well. We talked about how MLS clubs haven't, really done the best. Although I think Chicago Fire is a club that is probably a lot closer in doing that than some of the other clubs. I think they're a little bit better than some other MLS clubs as far as wanting to target and wanting to go reach out to Black communities. I think the Fire is doing that, but I think NISA can probably expedite the process a little bit as far as getting the local Black communities involved in the game, whether it be talent, whether it be players, or just followers of the club. So I love the move, and having somebody who's already, had a pedigree and been that great in Chicago is even better.
Yeah. So do you think they could pack out Bridgeview? They're going to be playing in Bridgeview.
I don't know about all that. But
yeah, I don't know why they did that, but
maybe they got a good deal,
yeah. That's gonna be tough.
Might try to start up and play on DePaul's field or play. There's some other lower division colleges that are based in the not far from the South side. So I think where they play at is important too.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm an expert on what Chicago NISA is doing because I don't know all the details of their plans, but I think not playing in Bridgeview, that's a start.
Yeah, that's not gonna work out.
All right, so let's jump into another game that we like to play here called No Card, Yellow Card, Red Card. So this is a rapid fire segment of the show where I'll read off some news headlines, and our guest Drake, as well as Amobi, will give their opinions on those headlines using the soccer card system. So no card is I agree with it, I'm cool with it. Yellow card is I can go either way, and red card is I disagree or I'm not cool with it. So we got the rules. All right, so first up, no card, yellow card, red card. Atlanta United is the only MLS club getting a third kit for the 2021 season.
I'm gonna go with yellow card because look, and we obviously know what happened with Philadelphia this week, where they had like a fan created kit, and that just goes to show that Philadelphia has the connections to his club that are loyal and that obviously are a little bit more diverse than other club fan supporter groups. But at the same time, although Atlanta had the worst season overall, they still are at the top of the culture food chain. So y'all mad, then y'all club should create better kits, and Adidas should do a little bit better.
For sure.
Yeah. Yellow card. I mean, it goes with the club. Like, push for an extra third kit. Obviously, Atlanta sells jerseys, so that's just how it goes. Yeah.
That is true. We are gonna buy that ugly jersey if they rolled out, regardless. All right, next up, no card, yellow card, red card. Neymar signs an extension with PSG. Is this a lack of desire?
I'm gonna go with a yellow card because I think, regardless of what anybody says, this dude still wants to win. He still wants to be the guy. Like he clearly has had a predator's ego. What I mean by that is, like, I want to be the guy that win period. And he wants to be the one that gets the credit, and he wants to have his own team. And I think he's probably getting a little bit impatient being at PSG, because me personally, I don't think PSG they're not like a Patriots organization. You know, they do things a little bit differently, and they're willing to spend to get what they want. But the fact of the matter is, Man City, and although Man City has the same type of pockets, but their system is a little bit different. Their continuity, and not just with Guardiola, but City Football Group and their scouting is a little bit different. You're not Bayern, and obviously you're not Madrid or Barca, or Juventus for that matter. So I think, look, Neymar is probably his last couple years. I think the next contract might be his last big time contract as well, as far as getting his chance to really be the guy, be at the top and win.
Yeah, I mean, I would say no card. Get your money, young king. For Neymar, what other club at right now would he go to that makes sense? So for me, I think he really wants that Champions League with PSG. They were close last year. They just hit an unstoppable Bayern team. Play until Mbappe goes to Real Madrid, and then from there, figure out where you're going to go. I think PSG is a good situation for him. Top dog, consistently in Champions League. Rep what he's doing, and he's playing under a good coach now. Yeah, it's good. I thought like there might be some things where he might go like Serie A. Serie A's getting some new blood in there, and a lot of money's going into Serie A. Thought he could do maybe a crazy ass like Inter, AC Milan type move. But PSG is a good decision on my part, in my opinion.
Can I ask both of y'all a question?
Sure.
I was good with it.
In a non-pandemic season, does PSG really do get to the final?
Yes.
What do you say, L?
Man, not the way Bayern was moving last year.
I mean, Bayern, regardless, I'm not even trying to be biased about it. Like, Bayern were just built. I think the loans that they completed were obviously timely, and my opinion is that it was a little overcrowded. But at the same time, I think injuries and just bad form took away Juventus' chance, and I don't think Man City has the gas to get through all the way to the final. So, quite frankly, I think I was looking forward to seeing Juve in the final. So PSG was kind of surprising. I think that was really just a combination of Mbappe and Neymar, but I think it was a lot of Mbappe. And, when as far as Neymar is concerned, especially when I saw in the final, he wasn't really causing problems like that. So.
But if you watch the final, PSG had chances. Mbappe that shot, and Neymar last year is probably top 3 player. I mean, Lewandowski did his thing, but Neymar in that kind of like that false 9-10 role with Mbappe on the wing, yeah, he was a top player. So I would say, yeah, they're making the final again.
Okay. All right. So, last one: no card, yellow card, red card. Mussolini's great grandson is playing for Lazio and it's getting a lot of backlash. But there's a lot of backlash around that. What are y'all thoughts?
Man, no card. Like, look, I get that that's something to pay attention to, but as far as like trying to make a narrative out of a family tree, like get to know the man. Like, what is he about? Like, does he have like fascist tattoos? I mean, what's the deal? I mean, what club does he play for?
Lazio.
Oh, Lazio. That's well, that might be close to a yellow card. I might give him a warning. I might give him a warning and say, look, you got one tackle. You know, metaphorically, you got one tackle, but the second one, I'm sending you off straight red. Like, I'm not even giving you a yellow.
Nah, yeah, this is like they commit a couple fouls. It's like, and the ref like does that little like, yo, come here.
Let me talk to you real quick.
There's three fouls. The next one's a yellow card. Like that's
facts. And I only said that, L, because you said Lazio. If you was talking about like, I don't know, Parma or, you know, Sampdoria or something, or like, shoot, even Napoli. But yeah, Lazio, no, ain't rocking with them.
This would be a great question for our homegirl, you know, the historian, to talk about like the cultural ties to Italy and the FA and Italy soccer, because I know she would have a lot of good insight about, you know, which clubs were kind of in this, you know, environment and the history behind it. So yeah, it's really interesting.
I will say that's one thing that I love. I talked one of the guys who I went to Northwestern with. We actually did an episode about this on a former podcast I was on called Soccercast, and you know, he, my bad, Andrew. We did an episode about hooliganism and politics in soccer, and I think it's something that, in terms of a franchise first sports nation, we don't get the chance to see clubs be individuals. You know, we got caps and we got, you know, salary budget charge and like all of this, you know, wearing diapers. Like, MLS really be, you know, putting diapers on clubs. Like, clubs can't really be them. They're just an extra leg off of the league tree, excuse me. And you don't see that, not just in Europe, but you don't see that in pretty much anywhere around the world. And so I think that's something that we don't get a chance as Americans to really get a chance to look at, like sectarianism in between not just the old firm with Celtic and Rangers, but really just like in all of the British leagues, whether it be the Premier League, championships, lower leagues, whether it be Irish League, whether it be, like I said, a Scottish Premier League. Obviously in Serie A, where you have, you know, fascism issues, you have nationalistic, you know, fan groups and supporters and ultras, right? Yeah. That carry. Look, it's not even, a lot of the time they saying stuff that has nothing to do with what happened in the game just now. Like, you're speaking pure propaganda. Pure propaganda. Like, and it's interesting because you get a chance to really learn about the history of the club, but also the people in that media community. I think it's informative. I think, you know, although I don't want, you know, I don't know, I'm not trying to put like a brand and not trying to slander no MLS club, but like, I'm just picking out of the hat. Like, imagine if, you know, LA Galaxy was like uber conservative, and like super nationalistic, and LAFC was just straight up, you know, liberal, Democrat, you know, progressive. And then on top of that, you have, you know, sectarianism, as I mentioned. So like LFC would be, you know, the Catholics, and you have Galaxy be the Protestants. You know, we don't have that in America. So it's I love that type of information, but I'm glad that we don't have that level of abuse in MLS or in any American soccer league.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think the only way we would see that is if, like, and I know we're not going to get to this topic like the pro rel, and then you have like clubs that are within the same city that are like, fan driven, ownership groups driven. And then you see like, all right, Sacramento, now you got Elk Grove versus Roseville. There's a different demographic between the Elk Grove population versus the Roseville population. Atlanta, I can't speak for Atlanta, but like, different things like that. And we don't see that because, America's so diverse and also so spread out. So
yeah. I mean, as far as Atlanta's goes, I mean, they train up in Marietta, which is kind of like on the north side. Marietta's because they got a significant amount of black people, but like they're not in like Zone 6 or nothing. They're not in Decatur, you know. Like imagine if a USL team was like East Atlanta, like, just representing a lot of their fans coming from that area, a lot of their fans coming from even the south side of Atlanta. Like they haven't, wearing T-shirts where they have the club crest has like a 85 South in it or something like that, where you can have that type of, north versus south in the city, or, suburb versus urban or whatever. I think to your point though, I think I would love that, just because it actually gives you a chance to choose, like, why do I support a club?
No, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, to that Atlanta point, it'll be practically anywhere south of 20 or west of 285.
That's a fact.
East of 285 versus like Cherokee County. You know what I'm saying? Like
Cobb County.
Yeah, I live in Cobb County, North Cobb County.
North Cobb County.
Hold up. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. All right, so I want to introduce a new segment of the show that we're going to start doing, not because it's February, but just because we need to celebrate more Black people in the sport of soccer.
Every month, Black History Month.
For sure. So we're going to do a segment I'm going to call Black Soccer History. So the first person we're going to highlight this week is Hope Powell. She's the 53-year-old who is currently the manager of Brighton's women FAWSL team. She's perhaps best known as her tenure as the first female and Black manager of any England national team. So after winning 66 caps for England women, scoring 35 times, Powell took charge of the Lionesses between 1998 and 2013. She won the Cyprus Cup in 2009 and 2013. She was also the first female ever to obtain a UEFA Pro license, which is the highest qualification available to a coach in Europe. So, flowers to Hope Powell.
Yeah.
Yep. Shout out Brighton as well.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, El, but I just wanted to say, like, shout out Brighton. Obviously, Nigel Houghton. When Brighton came into the Premier League, Nigel came in as a Black manager, and we didn't really get a chance to see that very much, and still haven't gotten a chance to really see that much in the Premier League. What's his name from West Brom as well? I don't mean to go off track, but there was, for a couple of seasons, Darren something. But anyway, sticking to Brighton and sticking to Hope, like, I think that's great for Hope, just to be able to continue her Black excellence and show that, like, we can contribute to the game in every facet and form.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Definitely give Hope her flowers. Doing big things, trailblazing it in the world of soccer, holding them licenses. You know what I mean? So that's it for this week.
So Drake, thank you so much. Where can the people find you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely, man. Follow me on Twitter, Live Life Drake. I'm not just talking about Nashville SC, MLS, obviously watching Europe, what's going on overseas, the national teams, talking about Black culture, really anything, get a chance to get to know me a little bit better. I also just dropped an Instagram, so follow your boy, Drake Hill Soccer. I made it. What's that?
Just now, huh?
Yeah, just like it's fresh out, like a week. It's a week old. So yeah, man, my goal is to have that be more of a personal space where, my whole motto as far as Instagram is, look, Twitter is so much about trying to get the message out of news, reporting, my own stories and my coverage of the club, getting a chance for you guys to get to know the players. I want my Instagram to be not only just that, but for you guys to get a chance to know me as well. So Drake Hill Soccer made it easy. Follow me, and yeah, it's gonna go down this season.
So thank you so much for taking the time. Definitely look forward to learning more about you, hearing your story, catching your reports, all that. But that's our show for this week. Subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us get discovered. Follow us on the socials at 2Cents FC. Check out our merch at 2centsports.shop. It helps support the show. This is probably the first time me or Elle is not rocking any 2 Cents merch, but check it out.
Nearby.
And then tweet us your comments on the show and any topics you want me or Elle to discuss.
That's it.
Appreciate it.